This movie is dark even for Irish folk horror. This is such a weird film. Part of the downside of doing one movie review every day is that when you get thrown a curveball such as this one, you don't have time to process all your feelings around it. I have no idea how I will feel about this film in the next few days or even the next month. I feel like I was passively interested for a lot of the time. Like, not fully bored, but a little bored. I know that sounds weird. Like, I didn't want to grab my phone or anything, but I did like want to fast forward the movie at points. And then about 20 minutes from the end, I wanted more movie, which I know sounds odd, but it just sort of illustrates the roller coaster of emotion that this movie had. It's really weird. I wanted more story. I wanted more weirdness. I wanted more lore to dig into. So I guess this movie is kind of boring until it isn't, which is about the most useless review for a film ever. But I have to go with my gut, and currently my gut is telling me to tell people that this film is boring until it isn't. All You Need Is Death follows a duo of semi-professional folk song collectors. I don't know if that's actually a profession that exists, or the word for it if it does. I did do some Googling, but it didn't have anything. Basically, they go around recording local people in Ireland singing regional folk songs. They often do this, by the way, without the subject knowing. And then they sell the recording of that folk song to collectors. In the movie, they find a supremely rare, like, proto-Celtic folk song, and they trick the owner into singing it for their secret recording. And when they do that, the pair realize why maybe the song has been buried by fucking history as shit starts to get very strange and a little spooky. That's basically the premise of this movie. There is actually a horror short I read called My Heart Struck Sorrow by John Horner Jacobs that has a very similar premise to this movie. That one is about a person in the Deep South who records songs and believes he may have accidentally recorded a song by the devil himself. It's a good book, and it's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's not great. It's like, it's like a 6 out of 10, I guess. It might go up or down later. I don't know. The premise itself is fucking fantastic, and I love it when a horror movie dishes me up a premise I haven't seen done to death in some facet. So it does have that going for it. It's a really interesting premise for a movie. And the acting is solid as hell in this movie. Simone Collins and Catherine Siggins being like standouts. Simone does a lot of singing in this movie, and I found her beautiful to listen to because she's not like angelic. It's like pub singing almost. Charlie Maher, who plays Alex, is really good, especially at the end of the movie, but he was almost distracting because I couldn't help but think that I had stumbled upon another Skarsgård brother. Like, I was literally there being like, I've never seen this one. Who is this Skarsgård? I've never seen him before. And then I got out of IMDb and I was like, oh, he's not a Skarsgård. It's spooky how much Skarsgård this guy has in him. He looks Skarsgårdian. Nigel O'Neill plays a guy called Breezeblock Concannon, which is fucking wild, and there is no explanation for his name, and when he says it, no one gives a shit. I'm like, we're all just cool with the fact that this guy's name's Breezeblock Concannon. Never gets brought up. Don't know if it's a nickname or his full name. Breezeblock, as in like cold wind, Breezeblock. It's literally, he's like, this is Breezeblock, and everyone's like, yep, that's Breezeblock Concannon. I felt like they were taking the piss out of me by doing that. I was like, no one's gonna, and everyone just kept going, like no one batted a fucking eye. And I'm like, I had to Google, I'm like, are there people in Ireland named Breezeblock? There's not. But I was fucking confused because they just let it go, like swing straight past it. It fucking blew my mind. The horror in this one ends up actually being quite creepy and atmospheric. when you work out what is happening, it almost gives you like Prometheus feel when all the pieces sort of click into place. The cinematography is bleak and it's rainy and it perfectly encapsulates the mood of the film. I actually, like, you feel chilly watching this film. It's very atmospheric and the design of the horror is fairly good, even though it's like nothing new. We've sort of seen it before. It is kind of unsettling. The main problem I have with this movie, apart from the fact that Bree's block is never addressed, is that it's so slow setting the pieces up. And I don't really know why some of the scenes or characters even exist. There are a few facets of this movie you could just completely remove, like completely wipe out entirely, and I do not think it would change the plot at all. And even though this movie is only 90 minutes long, it feels like a 2-hour movie, which is almost never a good thing in a horror movie, ever. I also don't really understand the main character's motivations for doing any of this. It doesn't seem to appear very lucrative or give them some stand in the community. In fact, it looks like they shouldn't be doing it, like it's sort of illegal and weird. It doesn't seem to give them any tangible benefit, and it seems extremely weird and difficult to do. So I guess passion, maybe, but then they didn't go into any of the characters' backstory, so I don't know why it's a passion of theirs. It's a bit odd. There's also some janky CGI, but it is on a very small budget, so I was like, that's fine, I don't care about that. But all in all, unless the premise really strikes you or you are like a nut for Irish folk horror, I think this is going to be a tough sell for most people. I'm glad I watched it. Like, I'm really glad I watched it, but I won't see it again. Like, there might be 1 or 2 people also on the planet that I would feel comfortable recommending this to that I think might like it. But other than that, like, it's pretty hard to recommend given there's a glut of really good folk horror out there at the moment. That being said, I am very interested to see what writer and director Paul Duane does next, because he's obviously like a bit of a weird guy and he's got an interesting point of view, and that does come through in this movie. So even though currently I didn't love it, it is an interesting film, and I was like, okay, it did feel like a tiny bit of a missed opportunity. I recommend watching this if you love the weirder side of horror, especially folk horror. This is fucking weird, and where it goes is also really weird. If you have read My Heart Struck Sorrow and want to see what it looked like if it was adapted into film, like, I'm kind of hoping they do that, because that's a Deep South America movie. That could be cool. If you want to see the smallest butt crack ever put on film, like, one of the last scenes, honestly, it actually elicited a laugh from me. That's how much it drew my attention. It looked that out of place. I don't know if that was intentional, but it's the smallest butt crack I've ever seen. I don't recommend watching this if you need a lot of explanation in your films. Why is his name Breeze Block? Why? What is Breeze Block? What is that? Is that a fucking word? Is that a word I don't know of? What is Breeze Block canon? If you hate slow burns, stay the fuck away from this one. This feels long, even though it's short. If you don't like janky CGI, don't go in there. There's not a lot of it, but it's pretty rough. If you like this, or you're just looking for a better folk horror, and you're hoping this was good, but you're like, I'm not going to watch it after your review, check out Apostle on Netflix. It's about a guy who has to travel to a remote island to rescue his sister from a cult, and as he digs deeper and investigates more, and they try to escape, shit hits the fan. It's made by one of the writers of The Raid, Gareth Evans, and Dan Stevens is in it, who is one of my favourite Scream kings of all time. I will watch anything Dan Stevens is in. I fucking love him. It's so tense, it's dark, and it has an ending that threw me for a loop. A lot like this one. Another folk horror film is the 2021 film Hellbender. It could go alongside this one, to be honest. It's also very weird. It's made by the Addams Family. That's with 1 M, not 2. Not Tish and Gomez, although I love them. The Addams Family, if you don't know, are a family of actors and filmmakers. It's like mum, dad, 2 daughters, and they're all actors and filmmakers, and they make music, and they just travel around the world making indie horror films. They're fucking... It's just cool. It's a cool family story. They're fucking dope. But this is my favourite of all their films they've made, I think. They're just a cool family. And Hellbender's about a teen named Izzy who is led to believe by her mother that she has like a contagious disease, so she has to seclude herself at the family she has to seclude herself at the family house, and she's not only allowed contact with, like, through her mum. Izzy finds out a shocking revelation about the condition and family ties, and shit gets weirder from there. The story is an interesting take on a genre that we have seen a lot in horror. It's got really interesting lore, and the music fucking slaps in it. They actually came out with a punk album based on the movie, like the family members do. It was fucking good. It's a good album too. As always, thanks for watching. And remember, if you do want to follow my Spooktober Watchfest, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that shit. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow for another review. Peace.